Here we are. I hope you guys thought it was only a matter of time before I got this done. It's a very, very special Sam Roberts Now. Of course, if you're not able to watch this live, then you probably haven't listened to me, as I've told you where you have to subscribe. It's youtube.com/Sam Roberts Now. Subscribe to the channel. Make sure your alerts are turned on. Also, hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Sam Roberts Now, because posts go up as soon as we're going live, whenever we're going live, so you can join us, you can jump in the chat room, you can do the whole deal, and not miss live key events like this. And by this, I mean, ladies and gentlemen, star of the film The Room, the writer of the brand new film Best Friends, Volume 1 and 2, author of the book The Disaster Artist, which has been made into a major motion picture, Academy Award-winning screenplay, by the way. Ladies and gentlemen, Greg Sestero, what's going on, man?
I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, welcome.
So much has happened since.
A lot's happened. You know, I interviewed you for the first time when it was just like us Room fans talking about The Room, and you were kind of going on tour, and you were promoting your book, The Disaster Artist. And I feel like The Disaster Artist, the book, got a lot of people into the movie that weren't into the movie before. Like, it definitely increased interest in all these screenings. But, like, I would have to imagine that The Disaster Artist, the movie, has just brought it up tenfold.
Totally. I mean, it's brought in people that would have never given The Room a chance.
Yeah.
Like, I was at opening night in Austin, and there was an older couple that came up to me and said, "Thank you so much for being his friend." And I realized that they didn't have no idea what The Room was. And that was a big reward, because with the book, that was my goal, you know, to bring people into this story in a way that was coherent, that was interesting, and that you don't have to be a lover of cinema or bad cinema to appreciate the story.
Right. And it is this nice thing of, like, you finally have the opportunity to be like, this isn't just a thing where we're just making fun of Tommy. Like, we're appreciating Tommy.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think a lot of people take it the wrong way and think like, oh yeah, let's laugh at this guy because he made a bad movie. And you're like, no, that's not what we're doing at all. We're appreciating the kind of crazy brilliance of the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a fascinating character, and I wanted to do that justice, and I wanted to do the whole story justice of, you know, following your dream, having it turn upside down, and then somehow trying to find redemption out of that.
So here's what I said to people who were like, or who were unfamiliar with this thing, because after I saw The Disaster Artist, I came on here and did a whole show about the whole legend and why you should see it and what it is and everything. And as a person who I believe I'm a connoisseur of The Room culture, I said, you see The Room first, then you see the movie The Disaster Artist, and then you read the book The Disaster Artist after you've seen the movie, because I almost feel like the movie does a good job of capturing the spirit of the whole thing, but the story itself, there's still much more to be told in that book, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's even crazier. I think it's one of those things where the movie had to almost tone down
It did.
how insane the story is to be able to relate to it. So yeah, it kind of made it a little bit more simple. So when you read the book, I mean, the stories just go on and on about how nuts the whole thing is. And
Yeah.
it's a little bit more twisted.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, whenever I see a true story film, a film based on a true story, immediately I go home, I go on Wiki, and I start reading articles and trying to figure out what the true story is. And, like, you go to see The Conjuring or whatever, and you're like, oh my god, that was terrifying. Let me go find the true story. And you just start looking up, and all these articles are like, yeah, everybody kind of knew that was a lie, that was false. And I'm like, oh. Kind of all the time you go, oh, the movie was a lot better than the true story. But in this one, not only is it not disappointing, you're like, what?
Yeah,
what?
You almost had to make it more relatable with the film.
Right.
Because if you followed the book exactly, it almost would feel like fiction. And
Yeah.
I think that's what was really interesting is the president of Simon Schuster had never seen The Room, and he read the book, and he's like, I don't know if this is even believable. Like, could we sell this as Tommy's a fictional character? He's not believable. So I think that's what makes the book even crazier than the movie, is just the stories that go on and on.
Did Tommy ever give you actual, like, legal problems with the book? Because the old story is that he says that the movie is 99.9%, but the book is only 40%. Like, did he ever actually say, like, no, you can't you're not going to be able to write this stuff about me. I'm going to sue you.
No, I mean, he was supportive. I interviewed him. He was the first person I told that I was going to do the book, and I interviewed him quite a bit. So a lot of his backstory in the book is stuff that he told me. I just think it's probably strange for him to read. He's so opinionated and sees the world such a specific way that I think he has his own version of the events, and I think it was probably a little foreign for him to read it that way. But at the end of the day, he said he thinks, overall the book is cool. So.
Well, it really is an odd place that you put yourself in, right? Because you have somehow become the human filter that Tommy Wiseau. You're like that middleman, the messenger, where like there's Tommy, and you are explaining to Tommy what the world thinks, and you're explaining to the world what Tommy thinks.
Yes.
That's kind of become your position in life at this point.
It's a very strange place to be. I don't know how I ended up exactly in this position, but I think if there was anybody on this planet who was suited to do so, I think it was me, because for some reason I'm patient, I'm interested in characters, I have a foreign background, so I speak other languages, so I'm drawn to different types of people. So the dialect is because you have so many dialects in your life, because your mom's from another country. Like, when you hear Tommy's voice and stuff, that's something that draws you in? Yeah, initially, because, you in acting class, it can, like we talked about before, it can be a little boring. You see these performances go up, you kind of see yourself and all these other actors that are trying to find themselves. And then Tommy went up there and you're like, what did I just watch? Like, this is fun. I'm drawn. I want to find out who this guy is. So I didn't expect to sign up for that for 20 years, but I guess that's, for all the actors out there in the class, be cautious of who you approach, because you may be clung to them for quite a while.
And it's also like, it usually doesn't end up that well. Like when you find a weird guy that you're just like, oh, I'm going to spend all my time with this guy because he's like, there's something about him that I'm interested in, usually doesn't end up with, a film and then a James Franco adaptation and a book, and like that usually doesn't bring you to this spot that you're in now.
No, I think we're in uncharted territory right now. I don't know where it's going now, but
what does that ever come up? Like, because it's so uncharted, like, do you go, okay, well, this has to be it? Like, do you write the book and go like, okay, that's the last chapter on The Room, and then you find out there's a movie, and then once the press is done and the Blu-ray comes out and everybody's done with the Franco movie, are you going, okay, that's it for The Room?
I mean, that happened in 2003, June 27th. I thought The Room is done. Okay, this part of my life is over, and we're here 15 years later talking about it. I don't think it's one of those things that I don't think will ever go away. I mean, I think it's like Rocky Horror. There's only been that movie, and then there's been The Room, which is going to be 15 years in June.
It's unbelievable.
It's really those two films that keep bringing people back on a monthly basis that people want more of. So, I mean, it's a fascinating spot to be in. I think had you just been an actor in a traditional sense and been in a bunch of TV shows and films, even good films, people move on from those. It's like people don't care about Roswell or all these other shows that
at the time were amazing.
I auditioned for that I really wish I would have been in. But like, this has taught me so much about life in general, and it's given me so much perspective that now I feel like I'm in a position where I do have something to offer going forward making stuff, because I've learned so much. Had I just been, like I said, on a TV show, I would just be an actor, and I think this has been a lot more rewarding than that path.
Well, it's smart, and you're separated from it, and I feel like most people in your position, because I've seen it, like I see it in the wrestling business, for instance. There are people who become famous in the wrestling sphere who really want to be mainstream famous, and instead of going like, okay, well, I'm gonna embrace this audience and move forward, they go, well, no, I'm not. This has nothing to do with wrestling, and they're like surprised when the fan base doesn't follow. Like, the really smart people are the guys like Chris Jericho, for example, who wants to do all kinds of stuff. He's in a rock band. He's got a really successful podcast, but that's because he kind of embraces all parts of it, not go like, okay, this is just for these people and that's just for those people. But he's like, no, this is all part of the world that we're in.
Yeah, I mean, I think The Room draws in a really interesting crowd. Most of the people are very smart. I mean, like the fact that you like The Room, I think that's really interesting. It draws in great people, and I think for me as a movie lover, it's an interesting place to be in because not many films have been able to do this. Now, for me, The Room isn't a movie I watch, or it's not like I'm on a date and I bring back and show people The Room.
Right.
But it's something.
You know, I've done a little film work. I don't. Yeah, I mean, I don't mind if you want to see it. I'll show you. Like
the sex scenes come on pause.
Yeah.
But it's no, it's something. Like I said, people love it. You make movies for the crowd, and the fact that people love it. Now the goal is really to find a good balance of making films that you're passionate about that can also satisfy your audience.
Well, there's also something, right? While we're singing the praises of this stuff, there's also something, and it's the same reason why, like, Lloyd Kaufman's been on the show, and everybody knows I'm obsessed with trauma films. There's something about a movie, no matter how good or how bad or what flaws you can find in it, that you can feel somebody's fingerprint on it. Like, you know, this is a guy who wrote a movie, who found actors to play out his story that he wanted to see and put on film. Like, you see it on a screen and you're like, that is his movie that he wanted out there. And there's not that many movies just because it's such a usually cooperative and a lot of times corporate environment for it. You know what I mean? So many people have their hands in it. There's not that many movies that you get to feel like this is what somebody wanted to do.
Yeah, he was able to control every aspect of it because he put himself in a position where he was financially secure. And
somehow
but he was able to make the movie he wanted to make.
Right.
And that, you're right, that doesn't happen very often.
For
good reason.
Yeah, most people shouldn't. It should be a cooperative medium.
Yeah.
So you write this book and they're going to make the movie and everything. Do you find yourself kind of married to your book in the sense that you kind of, once you sign your life rights and you sign the book away, it's kind of like, well, now it's in somebody else's hands. You're not the screenwriter. You know, they got professional award-winning screenwriters to write this thing. You're not the director. They got a professional award-winning guy to direct and star in it. Like, this isn't your story anymore. Do you still get married to the content and go like, oh, you should put this story in, and no, actually this happened before then? Or are you good at saying, I signed it away, this is your story to tell?
I actually felt none of that at all. I was just super excited to see what they would do with the material. I had a great conversation with James Franco early on. I knew that we were on the same page at the movie that he wanted to make. He saw it as like a P.T. Anderson type film, which is exactly the direction I was hoping it'd go in. And then they got Scott Newsetter, Michael Weber to do the screenplay, and their resume speaks for itself.
Absolutely.
So I was just excited to see what they would do with the story. Even to learn from making a good film this time. I'd been a part of something that turned out, The Room, so I learned from that, and now
Right.
I wanted to see the flip side and see how
do you make a real movie? Like, how do you actually make a movie?
I wanted to see a real Hollywood movie. I wanted to see how they do it, and everybody that worked on the film was just top notch.
Was Tommy critical of stuff that they were doing on the set?
He had more notes on the script than I did.
He did.
He had lines crossed out, ideas for scenes thrown in, and so I read the script and loved what they did. I thought it was really smart to take the friendship chapters, move those to the front of the
Right.
film, so you're invested in the characters. I thought it was great. I thought, Franco, obviously his performance was incredible, and I just knew it was going to be good.
And they did a good job of capturing, like, what each part of the book was about, but the one scene, and I guess, I don't know, the one scene that I was bummed out that it wasn't in, not because it would have brought the story in any new direction. In fact, it probably would have taken away from the story because it was so weird. But just because I can't get it out of my head, is the scene you describe when you guys first get to L.A. and you're trying to figure out that you did a little bit of it when, like, Tommy is just joking about you guys sleeping in the same bed. But so that weirdness is there.
Yeah.
But the scene you describe in your book when he's in the shower singing A Whole New World from Aladdin, and you're just kind of sleeping on the floor going, what am I doing here?
Yeah, I thought...
And maybe it was just because I wanted to see James Franco as Tommy Wiseau singing A Whole New World.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't know, but it was like stuff like that. I was like, there's these little... That's why I was like, you got to read the book. Because there are these little weird things in it that...
I thought that exact same thing. And that's why I was happy when they reshot some scenes and had them move to L.A. together. Initially, in the early script, it was Greg goes first.
Mm-hmm.
So when they moved to L.A. together and he has that moment, I thought that, that definitely carried that across. The somebody's chicken thing.
Right.
I thought that the hint was there, so I was happy about that.
Right. And in that one sort of scene, it gets that whole part, and it's there. So how did Tommy feel? So the new movie that you've made, which is not like, the movie's called Best Friends with the R in parentheses, right? And that poses the question. But a lot of, like I was talking to a buddy at work. We call him the Travis dog. He was saying, like, I don't really want to see this Best Friends movie because he was like, because I don't think Tommy wrote it. And it seems like they're just going to cash in on, Tommy and Greg from The Room. And I was like, but Greg wrote it. And he was like, oh, okay, then I will see it. Like, I thought there was no connection whatsoever. But you were telling me off the air that you tried to get what was going on, the essence of The Room, without like being like, hey, it's us from The Room, blah, blah, blah. Like actually you tried to put yourself more in that space of, we're not being aware, we're trying to just do a good movie. This isn't tongue in cheek. I'm trying to write a good movie and make a good movie.
Exactly, because I'm with Travis in that regard. I feel like everything since The Room has not been really interesting to me. And
right.
So if I was going to work with Tommy again, which I didn't think I would, it's been 15 years, I really wanted to try to make something different, challenge him to make a very different film. And so I wasn't interested in trying to recapture The Room. I wanted to go in a totally different direction. So that's what was interesting to me, is to try to make, like I said, like an art film, or like movies that I love, like Nightcrawler and Drive, and try to capture that vibe and put Tommy in a part where he can succeed and see what happens.
So do you think, have you heard from audiences? 'Cause I'm seeing it tonight. I haven't seen it yet. But are people able to get out of the, that's Tommy. There he is. Tommy says things weird. Like, are people able to get out of that and actually watch this thing?
I think it's the first time since The Room that I think Tommy is Tommy in the same way, in the sense that he's interesting like he is in The Room, but I think he delivers a performance that suits him a lot more. And for the most part, he's tested really well. People are like, Tommy's improved. Like, he's actually good in this part.
Right.
So,
but he's not being, hey, it's Tommy from The Room. Like,
no,
it's just Tommy Wiseau acting.
Yeah, I mean, the script really was tailored to him. I can think like Tommy at this point. So
right.
We really kind of pushed him to be in the moment and not kind of resort more to like the one-liners, or to act how he did in The Room. So it's a different performance, a different vibe.
After you did the audiobook for The Disaster Artist, you have to take time to get out of Tommy's head? Because I feel like specifically when you're doing the audiobook, and I've told people about this, it's like, you don't do an impression of Tommy for it. You just lock into Tommy when you do the Tommy parts. Did you have to spend time being like, I don't want to do anything related to this for a long time?
I took a couple weeks off. In fact, in this movie, there was a couple thoughts where maybe I could do his voiceover for a few scenes. Like
for ADR or whatever?
Yeah. So I was like, I'm here if we need it, in case it doesn't show up. So we did try it a little bit. It did get pretty close. But yeah, no, that was an idea where I do his voice.
Yeah, because it's not a head that you'd want to be in. Like you were just saying, like, I can think like him at this point.
It works, especially writing or doing an audiobook.
Sure.
But it's nice to get out of that space.
How does your mom feel about what you're doing now?
I think she's just completely dumbfounded
by the whole thing. Because she was very, there was a little scene in the movie about it, but you get much more into it in the book about how really against this she was. As, by the way, any mom would be. It's like this strange older man who's now lying about his age, taking your son away to Los Angeles.
It's like every mom's worst fear.
It's a nightmare.
Not only to want to go to LA to be an actor, but then to go to LA with a guy who says, he's the same age, but he looks like a vampire.
Right.
It's the kiss of death.
It's literally, it's like all the concerns when you have a kid and you go, well, at least he's a son, so I won't have to worry about all the things that you have to worry about when you have a daughter. Somehow you found a way to get all those things that you would have to worry about in one guy.
Yeah. And so I think my mom was always worried. I think she's finally like in shock, but at the same time still thinking like, how did this really happen? What's the next like pitfall? But I feel like she's, you know what she was telling me the other day? She was driving through this pass that we used to go to years ago when I was first living in LA, and she was visiting, and I was auditioning for the Power Rangers. And she said,
now, is this which Power Rangers?
This is like late 90s.
Okay, so this was one of the original TV series.
Yeah, and so I was driving out to Valencia, and she was visiting, and she's like, I felt so sorry for you, not only that you were driving that far to audition for the Power Rangers, but I knew you weren't going to get it, and I felt so bad. I didn't know what to say or how to deal with it. And so recently she was driving through that same area, and she's like, she felt like so happy that things like worked out,
right,
where I'm not still auditioning for Power Rangers. Yeah. There's actually some light at the end of the tunnel. So I think that was a good moment.
I mean, that's the trippy thing though about your story and about life that people need to realize and everything is that in your head you wanted to be a Power Ranger. Like you wanted to be an actor so much. Yeah. Like you drove all that way because you were like, if I can just be a Power Ranger, my dream will have come true and it'll all be worth it. And this is all I want. And you didn't even come close to getting it. I
didn't even get a call back.
Wow. Wow. And then you watch the Power Rangers and you're like, really? I wasn't good enough to do that?
I know. It's one of those things. You see, like, I auditioned, one of the first auditions I had was for Roswell. And you go out for these supporting parts and you just don't get anything. You think, God, it's so hard. It's one of those things that the business doesn't make any sense. I mean, obviously, then you end up making a film that you really don't think is going to go anywhere. And that's the one that's screening 15 years later around the world.
And right, and that's why you just have to kind of have to just not attach yourself to any sort of, this is how it's going to go, and just be aware that this thing is moving, and you just kind of have to realize, like, okay, we're going in this direction. Okay, this is happening over here. Like, let's just roll with it. Let's just roll with it. As opposed to being like, no, I started like as a young kid. This is exactly how it's gonna go, and I'm just gonna follow these steps. And if these steps aren't the one that are working, I'm following these steps. It's like, no, dude, no.
Yeah, it's like, you know, you start out, you want to be Indiana Jones,
right?
And then if you're not Indiana Jones, then everything else is a failure. But you might not realize that people don't want to see you as Indiana Jones.
Plus, there already is an Indiana Jones. Like, you can't be. There already was one.
Exactly.
You know?
I think it's great to have big dreams and think big, but you got to be able to, like, you know, evolve and roll with the punches.
So you weren't you didn't direct this movie, you just wrote this movie, Best Friends.
Yeah, I wrote this movie and produced it, and a buddy of mine, his name is Justin McGregor, he directed it. He saw The Room when he was 16, came across it on YouTube, and just couldn't, you know, he calls it a glitch in the matrix. Like, what is this thing even about? And so you know, we talked about making a film, like a legit film, if Tommy and I were to work together. And we both were a lover of cinema. We love good films, and we thought, let's try to make something that could kind of blend the two.
And how is Tommy to direct?
He was great this time around. Yeah, he was great. I mean, we worked nightly on dialogue and rehearsed with him.
But he listened to ideas.
He listened, yeah.
Like he's able to take his hands off.
He was great. Yeah, I mean, there was a few days where there were some strange things that happened, which happens on any movie. But for the most part, he worked hard. He was ready to go. Some of the scenes we did like 100 takes. No water bottles were thrown. But no, he was in it. And I think he was just hungry to get a chance to act again.
Right.
So I think he was in a mode that I hadn't seen him in a long time, where he was just like, tell me what to do and I'll do it.
So I had Paul Scheer on the show, and the video's on the YouTube channel at YouTube Notsam. And we were talking about the Disaster Artist and his kind of obsession with The Room, and, you know, all the celebrities, and how he really was just... He was doing a table read for it because he was a fan of The Room, and ended up in The Disaster Artist because of it. But he was also telling me before I talked to you about it that he's in this Best Friends movie. But in his description of it, he was like, I don't know. It's this next thing that they're doing. It seems really weird. He said, apparently there's a volume 1 and a volume 2, but the script I got had like 99 pages, so I don't get any of that. Like, he was describing it as, uh-oh, they're at it again. You saw that interview, right?
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah.
Because one of the first days we shot was he was there, and we had just a fiasco with this motorcycle, and we were shooting the ending first, and this guy was like rolling up, and it was ridiculous because his legs weren't long enough to fit the motorcycle, so he's supposed to look really scary, but he's like trying to walk it up, and it was one of the first.
You're supposed to be riding him, but he can't ride it.
And so Paul was watching this, and I'm just going, of course, this is like the first day that he sees, and I'm just like shaking my head. But no, Paul. I mean, I've been a big fan of Paul's for years now. I did How Did This Get Made in 2011, I think, when I was working on the book, and he's just like a super generous, nice guy, really talented. And a genuine fan of this stuff and a fan of film. Yeah, and he gets it, and his humor is just like so organic. He's never like trying to be funny. He gets it and puts it in a way that's really funny. So I thought it'd be great if he was a part of this. There was a small role. like it was still like being figured out. Like as we were filming,
I see.
The story was evolving, and so I think he got kind of like a work in progress.
So you didn't stretch 99 pages and like it's a bigger script than that.
Yeah, I think it evolved as we were filming, because when you're working with Tommy, there's scenes that happen that you can't put on the page. I mean, it's scripted, but it turns into something else, and you're kind of having to navigate through that. So, but yeah, no, I reached out to Paul, and his scenes ended up being stretched out into 2 different films. But I really think Paul was at the premiere in LA, and he got to see part of it, and he said it's Lynch meets Wiseau.
That's awesome.
But I think it'll be a worthy successor to this whole phenomenon.
It's amazing. You guys were in New Orleans the same weekend I was there for WrestleMania, and I didn't realize you were there on a Friday, and I don't think I realized until Sunday that you were there. Otherwise, I probably would have tried to duck out of some wrestling thing early and shown up at least just to say hi. Does Tommy Wiseau, when he does a live show in New Orleans, does he get a hometown welcome?
He does, yeah. Everybody brings it up. They tell me welcome home. I have a lot of people coming from his hometown, Chalmette.
Right.
Yeah, no, it was brought up nonstop. Like,
right.
We'll take you back there. Let's go hang out in your hometown. He's like,
any old high school friends show up, or
not this time.
Weird. Nobody from the neighborhood that remembered him.
Interesting. From the grocery store.
Yeah.
They're like, I worked there for 30 years. I never saw you. He's like, I used to work in milk section a long time ago. Like, what?
Yeah, because I'm sure they worked in like chips and stuff. They never interacted with the dairy section.
Yeah, no, that's a TV show in itself.
What, Tommy goes back?
Chalmette days.
Yeah. I just love the idea of Tommy going back to his hometown and like going back to the grocery store that he worked in, and like.
Well, we went back, I think, when I was working on the book in like 2013. He was going to take me to spots that he was in New Orleans, and he's like, "Oh, have the address," and we go back to this little street, and he's like, "Oh this is the house that I lived in," and we pull up, and it's just an empty lot. There's no house. Mm-hmm. Just an empty lot. I was like, of course. I finally feel like I'm going to get to a place. I'm going to see something. Empty lot.
And he goes, oh, must have torn down.
Yeah, he's like, oh no, hurricane, my God.
Oh my God, my house gone.
I was like, I'm never going to solve this mystery, and I'm fine with it, I guess.
Did you hear him on Jimmy Kimmel say he was from Europe?
I did, yeah.
Did that blow your mind a little bit?
He said that a few times. When I've interviewed him and stuff with the book, like that's something we've talked about quite a bit.
Like that he has your European ancestry.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's something we talked about quite a bit.
What was your of the mainstream press? Because I saw he did Howard Stern, he did Kimmel. Did he do anything else, like in terms of big shows with Franco?
I think that was it.
How did you feel about seeing him on those? Well, when all this attention started getting paid to him, especially he goes up at the Golden Globes, he does his speech, or he gets on stage. Was there any part of you that was like, I wouldn't mind jumping on some of these TV shows or jumping on stage, or were you going, nope?
I was thinking it's like, it was Franco's sort of vehicle, and he was like, it was his part, so it made a lot of sense, obviously, that
Tommy
bringing, because a big thing with The Disaster, as you watch the trailer, for people that haven't seen it, they don't, is this guy really real?
Right.
They think it's sort of a comedy.
Even after you see the film, if you don't know about The Room and you haven't done that research, you still don't believe that that's really how he is.
Exactly. So I thought it made a lot of sense to have the real Tommy with James. I thought that was a really smart move to get the word out for people who want to see the movie.
How did Tommy react? Because you were sitting with him, because I saw you, I think I texted you or something at the Golden Globes, because I saw you at the table and I was really, really happy about it. But you're sitting at the table with Tommy. James Franco wins his Golden Globe. Tommy goes up on stage. And then he tries to grab the mic, and Franco's like, no, Tommy, what are you doing? And kind of backs him off. How did Tommy feel about that whole thing after?
We didn't talk about it much. I didn't really see it because I was listening to the speech. It was,
everybody standing up.
Yeah, I didn't really catch the mic block. But when I saw it after, it became my favorite thing ever, and I watched it like a million times. I thought, of course, something like that would happen. But he didn't really say too much about it that night. I mean, I think it was overwhelming. I think the fact that James won. Yeah. It was just a great night. So
was some of this overwhelming for Tommy, who kind of, both of you had this dream, right? That you kind of got to live through what happened with The Disaster Artist. But I feel like for you, it was more like, I'm really fighting to try to make this happen. And while Tommy was fighting to make it happen, Tommy also had entitlement that you didn't have, right?
Absolutely. That's a good point.
So when all this stuff starts happening, is it weird for you? Because I almost, like, when you really, like, paid attention, like, on the Stern interview or the Kimmel interview or even at the Golden Globes, like, specifically at the Golden Globes, when he gets backed away from the mic, there's almost this kind of bashful, embarrassed thing that happens to Tommy because all this attention's on him that I'd never seen before. Was it weird for you, for a guy who, like, you've interacted and he has been entitled to this attention for so long, to now get it and go like, oh, and have to handle it?
Yeah.
Was that a weird experience for you?
I think, you know what, it's interesting because Tommy and I both had, like, big goals and dreams.
Right.
With The Room, Tommy thought he was going to win the Oscar, become the next Marlon Brando, and be taken seriously as, like, the next big filmmaker. And then The Room happened.
Right.
Which was the complete opposite of what his goal was, and he was probably didn't know how to take that. Then I come along in about 2010, and I say, okay, I'm going to write this book. It's going to become a New York Times bestseller. I want it to become the next Ed Wood or Sunset Boulevard, where it's going to win awards. It's going to have big actors playing the parts. And then people thought I was delusional, just like they thought Tommy was delusional as well. So,
and it did take time. I mean, your book came out when?
2013.
Oh, actually, that's pretty fast.
But I'm just saying, and all across the way, like, people didn't think the book, people didn't really get the book initially when I was pitching it. They were like, who wants to read a book about a bad movie? And so it was tough to get the book off the ground. So we both had similar paths to this, but for me, it was just extremely rewarding that all those things happened in the way that I was hoping and intended them to be.
Right.
But it was really interesting because none of that would have happened if Tommy didn't go out and, like, hit the baseball over the back, hit a backwards home run.
Right.
That kind of got the ball rolling. So I think it brought us both together in a way that, what he was going for, what I was going for, it ended up working out. So, in this business, the fact that this has even happened is so crazy and so rewarding that I've just felt like, hey, I'm lucky to just even be here. I shouldn't ask for anything else.
Right.
And I think that's kind of the way I looked at it, that and again, even with James and Seth, it's still really hard to get a movie off the ground. I mean, The Disaster Artist could have very easily just been a Netflix movie. Mm-hmm. It took a lot of people that believed in the story, that loved The Room, that pushed it to, at New Line, like Dave Newstetter at New Line loved The Room and helped get this thing off the ground. And then they were really cool to let A24 take it, which was the right fit for it. So just so many people helped make this happen that I was just, like, grateful to be there.
Was it disappointing when, I mean, it got the Oscar nomination for screenplay, but when Franco didn't get the Oscar nomination or Best Picture or something like that, was there any disappointment, or were you still in such a grateful place that?
I know I was definitely disappointed because I really felt that he deserved it.
Yeah.
And I felt like, he had won Gotham. I think he had won Golden Globes. I mean, I thought personally it was an Academy Award worthy performance, and I mean, I think so many other people did. It was such a tough role to do, and having known Tommy as long as I have, to see him, to watch that performance and really be into it and be moved by it, I thought was just such a great accomplishment. But again, I was grateful that, the screenplay got nominated, and we started with The Room, and we're talking about the Oscars. I mean, that's something we need to think about. But yeah, no, I was definitely disappointed for James because I know how hard he worked.
And it also did feel like, for James, at least to me watching at home, I felt like a lot of him not getting nominated had to do with the controversy that was around him at the time, which is, it always bothers me when it's one thing if there's, controversy around something that you did and it's like, nah, it's really bad. But when there's controversy around you and it stops you probably from getting this Oscar nomination, and then it just kind of goes away after the Oscars, you're like, well, what did this bring us? You know what I mean? That's what disappointed me.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, like I said, his performance spoke for itself.
Yeah.
I don't know anything personally, personal life or whatever, but everybody loved that performance. I mean, there wasn't one person, even skeptical fans were like, I didn't think he could do it, and he did it.
Yeah.
And so he really won everybody over.
I think that scene when he's walking on set the first day and he's wearing the bucket hat and the cargo pants, and there's that profile shot of him, and you're like, oh my, like you have to do a double take because you're like, that was Tommy just then, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and what I love about it is I feel like he made the movie for the right reasons. He really believed in the story, and he just put his heart into it. And I thought, it was something that.
Are there any celebrities that you've encountered that are fans of The Room, other than Paul Scheer, who you kind of can't believe are like obsessive fans of this thing?
Well, the Golden Globes is interesting because I didn't realize how many people had seen The Disaster Artist. So we were kind of walking around early on, and Angelina Jolie was sitting down at one of the tables, and it's funny because Tommy used to say that Lisa needed to be like Angelina Jolie, and so Tommy and I were walking by, and he looks down at her, and he looks at me, and he was like, "I'm gonna go say something." I was like, "No, go." And then we ran into Edgar Wright,
because you're just picturing basically the movie interaction with him and Judd Apatow.
Exactly. And I was like, no, don't. And so we run into Edgar Wright, who's great, and he's also like the Disaster Artist. And so I was talking to him, and he kind of looks at Tommy, and Tommy's going to talk to Angelina Jolie, and I was like, you want to go watch Tommy hit on Angelina Jolie? It's like, let's do it. So he walks up, and she was extremely nice, and she said she loved the movie, and her kids loved the movie as well. But all this time, Tommy thought that she was talking about The Room. But I was like, no, it's the Golden Globe nominated film.
Movie we're here for.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And no, it was super cool. Like Tom Hanks, I guess, really liked The Disaster Artist. He came up and said hello. Daniel Kaluuya from Get Out had come to like a room screening that we were at.
Really?
Q&A, yeah. It was just amazing how like supportive everybody was.
I think on some level everybody in that community gets it. Like, no matter how, at some point, years and years and years ago, Tom Hanks was this struggling actor who just wanted a part or wanted to do something. Like, that's where I think the story was effective, is that, like, all the people in that community get it.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I think, getting rejected and saying, I'm going to go out and make my own movie, and then have it, that great quote, have it fail so spectacularly that it became something special.
Yeah.
And then I think everybody at this point, 15 years later, it's you got to kind of look at it as a success, because it's still selling out cinemas, while other movies that even have good actors and that are good films, nobody's showing up for. So,
how long did it take Tommy to actually embrace this thing? Because in the movie, it's like while the screening is still happening, it's kind of explained, like, you just have to embrace this, and he puts his arms up and it's 3 cheers, and like 100% you have to do that in the film adaptation, because like we're telling a story here and we got to get to the end of it. But how long did it actually take Tommy to embrace the fact that people like it for reasons that he did not intend them?
I think when they were laughing at the premiere, he was a little confused, probably, as I would feel, as anybody would feel. And then it wasn't until like a good year as college kids started showing up and really showing love and appreciation, dressing like the characters, throwing spoons, treating him like he was this brilliant filmmaker. I think he knew that the film was doing something special, even if it wasn't bringing tears.
Right. It was resonating on some level.
It was resonating on some level, and he says, if these people want to show up, I'll show up as well.
Right. Now, do you still have the card that he gave you to be in the film?
I do, yeah.
You do?
I don't use it anymore, but
that's
still
your...
It's amazing. It's still trucking.
What kind of car was it?
It was a Jeep, 2001 Jeep Grand Cherokee, I think.
That's amazing. Yeah, I feel like you can't get rid of it, because that's like... That's
My mom still drives it around once in a while. I owe her.
Is that the... I'm surprised that Tommy didn't put like a Tommy wrap on it or something.
He did. He had the roommovie.com sticker on it for a long time. Yeah.
He did. You guys took it off, though?
I took it off.
Okay.
We should put it back on now.
I think you should, too.
Yeah.
I think you should, too.
Now it's cool.
By the way, on our radio show on Jim Norton and Sam Roberts on SiriusXM, anytime I have a sound machine, and anytime anybody says anything, like anytime there's a fight going on or anytime somebody insults anybody, it's keep your stupid comments in your pocket. Just plays for everybody.
Has Jim seen the Room?
I don't
think he has.
I don't think he's seen The Room.
I remember there was a clip that was shown on it one time, and he was watching it, and he says, "Wow, that guy sucks." Like, no, that's the point.
Yeah, no, we got. He's like, it's terrible. No, we understood. Yeah, I don't think he's watched the whole thing. Maybe I should have him down here watching the movie and getting his like live reaction as he watches it.
I don't know if it's like totally his thing, but
no, I mean. You don't know if it's totally somebody's thing until they sit down and watch the thing. Do you feel like you're protective of Tommy? In the sense that, a lot of people, there's money to be made with Tommy Wiseau, clearly, as much as people at first didn't think so. Like, you know, there's clearly money to be made, but he's also in a position where people can take advantage of him, right?
I just tell him now, like, I try to, like, he'll come to me with some questions about different projects, and I try to be honest with him and just say that, you know, I think either you're better than that, or I think try to stick to something that you'd really want to do. Don't just do it because it's work. You know,
right.
I think it means a lot to him that someone would hire him as an actor. And I just told him, like, what you did was really unique. You made a film, regardless of what people say. There's demand for it. People still show up. You know, I'll do book signings and events, and there's this hunger for the room that people just keep wanting to come back. So I think I told him to feel, you know, to be proud of that, and to just going forward, like, do things you really want to do. Don't let people put you in something that's going to make you look foolish.
Is there something in your book that you thought, either that you thought people would bring up more, or that you didn't think people would bring up as much?
It went about as I was expecting.
Mm-hmm.
I thought there were certain clues and little things I put in there, you know, because I love, like, crime solving and serial killer stuff, and I was like, this is a great mystery, and I'm going to give a little bit here to see if people can pick up on it and try to take the clues and go with it. But people didn't read into it as much as I thought. Like, some people took the clues that I put about the backstory and pieced certain things together, but it went about as what I was expecting.
Yeah. I mean, and I guess because you wanted it to be successful, and it went very successfully. So the movie is out now. You're doing screenings for Best Friends.
Yeah.
Volume 1.
Volume 1.
Have you finished Volume 2?
Volume 2 is being finished right now. It's done. It's just being put together.
Did you do it on film and HD video at the same time?
We shot on two different cameras. No. This time we stuck to Sony digital.
Right.
Kept it simple.
Right.
And no, but I think I hope the goal with these films is that they're going to surprise people and entertain them. You know, fans have supported us now for so many years that I feel like we owe them a new journey.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you got to put your heart into it. You got to put effort into it, because I think your audience can tell if you just kind of phoned it in.
Absolutely.
So I think so far people are realizing that we really tried to do something different.
Yeah, and I mean, especially because, like, at first, number one, it could be a joke, and number two, you know, you're saying I've created this 2-volume set, and you're like, whoa, everybody's like, what are you talking about? When you just decided to go and do this? But I guess if it clicks, it clicks, right?
Yeah, I mean, it really came from testing with an audience. I showed the buddy of mine who saw really the kind of the first half and was like, I need to digest that. That was intense, and think about it. I was like, oh, dude, this is like half the movie. He's like, what? And so I realized, don't rush it. Mm-hmm. You know, I think it's a lot of times you go to these movies and they're a little too long, and you kind of leave being like, I'm good if I just left there. And so with this, I feel like it leaves you wanting more.
Yeah.
And kind of do like a throwback intermission, and eventually you can show them both.
How did the Batman sketch end up coming about? The Funny or Die Joker audition that Tommy did.
So
because I think there was an interview that Tommy did where he said he wanted to play the Joker, right?
Yes.
And then I remember reading that, and then like a month later, there's this video.
Yeah, it was actually really clever. So we were working with Lionsgate. They were doing the home release for The Disaster Artist.
Mm-hmm.
And
which, by the way, before you get into that, because I don't want to lose this thought, why on earth has there not been... So the room is still available only where it was available the first time I interviewed you, the first time I interviewed Tommy. Tommy came up. It was just about the room. You know, the book was out there, but he wasn't really fully embracing it
mm-hmm.
yet. And there was certainly no talk of it becoming a motion picture yet.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, if you want the room on Blu-ray, you can get it at theroommovie.com or whatever, and that's it. And, you know, the PayPal window still says Street Fashions USA, and you're like, this is all... That's when, I think for me, when I ordered stuff off Tommy's website, and the PayPal thing came back and said Street Fashions USA, seeing Street Fashions USA on the screen was when it clicked in that, oh my God, the book is real. Like, oh, this all really happened.
Yeah,
this is life.
You can't make that up.
No. So, why? I was convinced because, you know, I'm pretty familiar with A24, and they're pretty smart, progressive film distribution spot that is really doing good stuff, but is also smart and can be quirky and kitschy and do all this stuff. And I felt like just about everything they were doing this year was amazing and something I wanted to be involved in some way, shape, or form. But I was convinced, first I was convinced that, well, obviously, when they start screening, before the Disaster Artist gets, like, national release, when they were just screening it, I'm sure they'll do double features of The Room and the Disaster Artist. And then that really didn't happen. And I was like, huh. And I was like, well, I'm sure that they'll do some kind of double Blu-ray set, or, you know, A24 will pick up the rights and we'll finally get The Room on iTunes and stuff like that. And none of it happened. And the wave of support has come, and now it's starting to go because the Disaster Artist it had its run.
Yeah.
And at no point was The Room, the film itself, any easier to get.
No.
It was just, you have to go to Tommy's website and order it and hope that he sends it to you. Because I talked to friends that he have not received.
Yeah, I think it did a few college campuses.
Mm-hmm.
A24 set that up, which was really smart. And then, yeah, that was it.
So Tommy didn't, do you think that do you know or not if they tried to make it happen?
I think they did, yeah.
And Tommy wanted no part of it.
No.
That's okay. Well, leave it to Tommy. A24 saw what I saw in that. Well, why don't you just give it? All they have to. It's not like they're going to change it. It's just let us distribute this.
I mean, yeah. It's like even it would have even worked if they did like Lady Bird in The Room, like anything to get The Room like
sure
under more out in the open. But
no, he's like, no, we're just going to keep touring with it. No. I think. Are there more people coming to see it? On tour?
Oh, definitely.
Okay,
yeah.
So there's a little bit, but
I feel like it's still really hard to get. I mean, people want to sit down and watch a movie on HBO or Netflix.
Of course,
make it easy for them.
I go like, you got to. Here's what happens. I go like, you got to see this thing, and people are like, well, how do I see it? And I'm like, well, you got to come over because it's not online. I got the Blu-ray here.
You got to start having screenings here.
Right, I could start having screenings here because I'm trying to do everything I can to not tell people to be like. You can find it on YouTube. You know what I mean?
It had like 250,000 views on YouTube.
Because of course you're gonna.
Just right there.
If it were on Netflix, or you could even, if it was $4.99 on iTunes,
there you go.
Everybody would just buy it instead.
Yeah. Even if they watch the first 15 minutes,
Who
like
cares?
I did, and leave, at least
you're supporting the film in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Or put it on Google Play. That way, it's on YouTube, but you have to pay to see it.
True. Yeah, that's the smartest way to do it.
But. No, it's just available on Blu-ray on the website. Okay, so he just doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want
show up.
Which is, I mean, and then sometimes it doesn't show up on your doorstep. Or as I told you, I ordered. I went to Tommy's website, theroommmovie.com, and I ordered ties because I thought
You're tearing me apart. Tie?
Yeah. Because I do the WWE. I mean, they're pretty ugly ties. I do the WWE gigs, and I wear a suit when I do them. And I thought that I haven't found the suit that matches the ties yet, but I thought at some point I'd be able to wear these Tommy Wiseau ties on TV because I love Tommy and I love everything. And I haven't yet, but that's why I ordered them. And I was like, while I'm at it, I got this basement. Let me finally order a poster from The Room. And so I ordered the two things. 3 months went by. I think it was 3 months. It might have been 4.
It's usually 3. If you're gonna get it, it's within 3 months.
Okay, so about 3 months goes by, and I get a poster tube sitting on my doorstep, and I'm like, oh my god, is this what I think it is? And I open it, and it's just the poster.
Okay, which poster? Just The Room?
The Room movie. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. It's over there. I'll show it to you. But then 1 day later, another package comes, and it's the ties, and I'm going like. Why would you pay double shipping?
Because you're his favorite customer.
I guess so. He's like,
you deserve 2
I said
packages.
2 packages. But yeah, so that's the only place you can get the movie. So how did the Batman sketch come about?
Okay, so the PR people at Lionsgate got wind of that interview that he did. Now there's a director at Nerdist that I'd worked with before named Andrew Bowser who does like shows and skits and stuff. And he came up with the idea because I think Nerdist is owned by Legendary now, who did Batman.
Oh,
so let's give him his Joker audition tape.
Let's do it.
And then so they set that up. It was going to be the Joker audition tape. They sent the script. I was coaching Tommy on kind of how to play the Joker. Don't overdo things. Keep your eyes open. You know, because I'm a big Batman fan. So
which Joker were you coaching him to be? Because obviously
Heath Ledger.
He was dressed like Heath Ledger. But he started doing Jack Nicholson
He
Joker
started doing,
lines.
he didn't want to do that, but then he fell into it. He kind of had a little bit of the old Joker mixed with the visual of the Heath Ledger Joker. But I was kind of telling him, use your hands a little bit, and he's like, "Oh my God, you're such a good coach. Why don't you play Batman?" I was like, no, you got this, No, I insist, you play Batman. And so we're in the car, and he's like calling
because you're a good coach. Of course, play Batman.
So he's calling the Lionsgate PR people and saying like, "Hey, I have a great idea. What if Greg does Batman?" I was like, no. It was like Mark in the room. I was like, no, and he was like trying to get me in there.
And you also don't want Lionsgate to think that you're trying to piggyback off of Tommy's thing. Like I'm just here to be.
I said I'm good. I don't need to be Batman. Because I didn't know how it was going to turn out, and and then I didn't know that Andrew was directing it, who I did this Terror Twins thing with a few years back, but they liked the idea, and so Monday morning came around, and I was like, "It's the room again."
You did it again.
I was like, "Why not?" But I just was like, I was only in it for one scene, which it ended up being really fun. It was put together really well. Everyone had a good time. It was only like 4 hours of shooting, really productive.
It seemed like Tommy was legit like auditioning to be the Joker. Like he took it as seriously.
Oh, he took it totally seriously. Like he was really into it.
Like I know, like he's thinking to himself, I know this is comedy. I know we're just doing a bit here, but I also want people to see this and think he could play the Joker.
Yeah, and I thought he was good. I mean, he really went for it, and no, it was a fun few hours of filming, and I'm glad I was in it for a second. Yeah. But it was fun.
He goes, "You are not Batman," and then he just brings you on to be Batman. You're like, "Yeah, I guess I'm Batman."
It's like, I got a good idea I can be Batman, because I didn't know what was gonna happen.
Right.
But, no, I thought it worked. I thought it was good.
Yeah, I thought it was great too. Do you know what his response to it was?
Yeah, he's just making sure that Warner Brothers knows that he's available.
Oh, good, yeah.
For the Joker spinoff.
Right. Tell him, you know, especially since unfortunately Heath Ledger is no longer with us. You know, I know there were plans to bring that character back. Maybe.
I mean,
you know,
I think he's got everything there that it takes to do it. He showed.
Right.
So.
Or, maybe Jared Leto can't do the next Justice League movie or whatever. Maybe.
Or at least he could be like, a YouTube Joker show or something like that.
Right.
Something. He's got to do something with that.
Whatever
passion.
you need. Yeah, he can't just let that go. Although I do think it's remarkable that he's finally comfortable playing a villain.
Yeah.
Usually he wants to be the hero, right?
True.
So
yeah, like in the Disaster Artist.
Right. I think that's a big step forward.
Yeah, he's embracing his type.
Yeah. Were you there when he shot that last scene, the after credit scene in the Disaster Artist?
That was one of the days I wasn't there, but I heard it was. I heard it was really interesting.
Yeah,
it was like James is Tommy interviewing Tommy. But
because James, when he directed, that's what Paul said and the other people said, that when James directed, he wasn't like method in the sense that it wasn't as if Tommy was directing you, but it was James Franco speaking with a Tommy Wiseau accent directing you.
Yeah. Oh no. Whenever I'd go there, I would just call James Tommy.
Right.
So I would just treat him like he was Tommy. I never tried to do anything else, and he just rolled with it.
But then how did Tommy treat
when he was there? I don't know if James. I think he still kind of maybe broke character a little bit, but for the most part he stayed in character.
It's like, no, I'm gonna be Tommy.
I mean, I thought that's brilliant. That's the only way to do it.
Do you know if did James have the patience that you have with Tommy?
I don't think he would have. I think he would have probably worn thin.
I mean, I don't think anybody would have, to tell you the truth, right? Like, especially James Franco, he's like doing a million things.
Yeah, I think it's cute for a little bit, and I think James would probably be like, okay, you know.
I can't just hang out with you all the time.
Yeah. But James was a great sport. Which was interesting because he had never seen The Room. He read the book first, and thought, oh, that's what that billboard thing was. And then
so you remember the billboard from being in LA? Yeah,
and then halfway through the book, he said that he knew he wanted to make it into a film, and he knew he wanted to play Tommy.
So who was it? Seth Rogen that like kind of brought him into being like, no, there's this whole other world, or did he just find the world?
No, the book was sent to him through a friend, I think, through a producer who said, I thought you might be interested in this.
Right.
And so he
literally just read the book and wanted to make a movie based on that book.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't aware of like the culture around it.
I think he went to go see The Room when he was almost done with the book. But he had never seen The Room before.
Wow. And when you find out that James Franco wants to make the movie, is it one of those like, this is too good to be true, I'll believe it when I see it type things?
Yeah. Yeah, because I felt like you know, again, I thought was I delusional that this story could be its own film.
Right.
And there was like glimpses of that. People, like the editor said, this is great. I could see this as a movie, but until you get the call from, and they had just done like, this is the end. So it was definitely really surprising. And again, it's really hard to get a movie made, even when you have a lot of people behind them. Like James has made a lot of movies and that they haven't come out, and that happens with a lot of people. So it was, it definitely seemed like, I was just happy he read it at that point.
Yeah.
It had been 3 weeks and the book had just come out. So I was amazed that he had experienced the story and liked it. So, it was definitely one of those things. And then I called Tommy. I was like, hey, guess what? James Franco read the book and wants to make a movie on it. He says, well, how do you know for sure? Come on. I was like, what? I mean, give me a break, man.
He thinks you're being lied to.
Yeah. But one of my favorite things with Tommy is that there was this big agent who had read the book before it came out. And he reps like big authors that do book to film. I think he did like No Country for Old Men. He was like an older agent. And so he read the book. He really liked it. He thought there was a lot of humor there and he wanted to rep it. And so he wanted us to come in and meet, and he wanted Tommy to sign life rights or whatever. So we went and had this meeting, and halfway through the meeting, Tommy starts pitching his sitcom idea and other movies. And then the agent's like, this is a meeting for this book. I don't know what you think I do. And then later Tommy told me he thought I rented The Office, and that guy who was the agent was an actor, that I had set the whole thing up.
He's a paranoid guy, this Tommy, huh?
Well, I think he just thought, like, in this town, you don't know the way it works.
But he knows you.
I still think it's just one of those things. I don't know. I got to figure that out.
After all this, though, that he would think, although...
I was like, don't give me any ideas.
So, this isn't... I don't think it's a spoiler, because I watched an interview that you were doing about this movie, Best Friends. So I know what it's based on. The movie is based on a road trip that you guys took after The Room had came out in 2003.
Yeah, we were heading up to Bodega Bay, driving up the coast, and it got really late. It got really foggy up there, and I didn't feel like driving all the way back. So there's this little motel that had one room left. And so...
Ironically enough. The Room.
Spend the night in the room. So I thought we'd have a better shot if maybe Tommy didn't go in, because he was in full vampire mode at that point. Like, his hair was a mess. And so I thought, this guy's going to see us up in this thing, what are these guys up to? So probably on some drug binge. And so I went in, I told Tommy to meet me around the back, and I'll let him in if I get the room. And so he thought that was very suspicious, that I was trying to hide him from cameras, that I was going to try to do something, like a plot against him or something.
Yeah, because you said in another interview that, and I hope this isn't a spoiler, that he thought you had brought him to the motel to kill him.
Yeah, or like to the up to this town.
Right, up to the, like, he thought the purpose of, in that moment he was like, oh, the purpose of this road trip.
He said he got a vibe that
Greg is here to kill me.
Up to no good. Yeah.
Which, like, at that point you had never murdered anybody, right?
No.
No.
I thought, well, making the room, I thought about it, but I was just looking to get a good night's sleep.
Right.
And then so the next day on the drive back, he was like dozed off and sleeping, and he had like his keys like sticking out of his pocket, all these keys. And I thought, at this point I didn't know anything about him. I was like, what if, like, on this cliffside you just dumped him off, took his keys, found out everything about him. So I started kind of having this fantasy about it, and then that's kind of what I used.
Right.
For
like, what if I really was trying to do that? Yeah.
And then how would he get back if he got like ditched there? What would happen to him?
Right.
So yeah.
And this is not the road trip that we see in the film where you guys go up and to the spot where James Dean died.
No, that was the good road trip.
Right.
That's where everything was working.
Right. In 2003, the road trip was not great.
That was like in the 3-month dating phase where everything was going well.
Right. Everything's the honeymoon phase, and you're like, oh my God, this guy is great. Like,
this was in, like, the close to breakup phase.
Right. I see. Now, yeah, what's the longest you and Tommy have spent not being cool?
I'd say about a year.
You did. You went like, and when was that?
It was a little time after the book came out. I think it was just like, Tommy gets protective or territorial, and again, one of the interesting things throughout our friendship is that he felt like I never took a risk on him and tried to make a film with him. Like that he thought like I didn't believe in him.
I see.
And it really wasn't that. It was just a matter of like, The Room was just such a monster that you're trying to figure out where you fit in. It's, you want to do your own thing at some point, but The Room, it's hard to figure that out. And so I just thought, let me like breathe and see what I want to do. So the book came out, the Franco stuff was happening, and I think he thought like I didn't want to do his show or whatever. And so...
Oh, is that when he was doing the Neighbors show?
I think so, yeah. So I just kind of took a break, and then, yeah, he was kind of upset about that, and then...
And were you worried at all when that was happening, that you're like, oh, if we're not talking, like, I hope that he doesn't sabotage what could be a cool movie deal for this book?
Well, that's what we kind of got back in touch, and he's like, I'm sorry, it will not be as easy as you think. And so that week was taken in of making sure he was happy, making sure he had his cameo. Right. So that kind of brought everything. That kind of brought everything back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's just a matter of,
because that's when you started taking a risk on him. That's when you started being like, "Yep, this is my book turning into a movie, but you got to meet Tommy's demands."
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is, I don't know how any of this has worked. I don't know how the book ended up happening, then the film ended up happening. And then we ended up making these new movies. Like, I don't know how it all works. So.
But clearly you're cool now. I mean, you were in New Orleans together a couple weeks ago. This new movie, it's you guys together again.
Yeah.
So the old team is back. Do you feel like when you guys aren't getting along, is there kind of like a thing where you're like,
Yeah, I mean, this whole experience has strengthened things a lot. I think I've become... I mean, it's been a lot more rewarding over the past couple of years. I mean, you realize, like, without each other, we wouldn't have had anything. And
right.
So you realize, okay, like, your patience is a little bit more there.
And I guess you guys both have to get there, right?
Yeah.
Like, you both have to kind of be aware of what each of your integral parts are in this whole universe.
Yeah, you realize, like, at the end of the day, I'm thankful, even if it was exhausting. I'm still thankful that something redeemable came of this, and so you're in better spirits. You're going to be able to put up with more.
Did you talk to any of the room cast members about the movie?
Yeah, I mean, I think they were all excited
Everybody's
about it as well.
pumped about it. Yeah,
I think it's one of those things that it's very rare that happens, and even though mostly everybody's moved on, it's still like, there's a movie about that experience.
Right, totally. Well, guys, I appreciate everybody hanging out and being a part of this thing. If you want to see what it's bestfriendsmovie.com, is that what it is?
Yeah, bfmovie.com. Yeah.
bfmovie.com.
movie.com. Yeah.
bf-movie.com. You can also, if you follow at Greg Sestero on Twitter, there's links all over the place. Because I already saw, I mean, you're doing a killer job of getting this movie shown. It's in, like, around here. You're playing it at the Alamo Draft House. I think in the summer you're going to be in White Plains.
Yeah, we're going to do, actually, Memorial Day weekend here in New York. Tommy and I are going to be at the Landmark 57th, May 25th through the 27th, showing Best Friends in the Room for the 15th anniversary. Yeah, so we'll be back in New York on May 25th through the 27th.
Well, both of you will have to come by then.
Yeah.
We'll have to do an interview with both of you. Well, thanks a lot for being here, man.
Definitely.
It's good talking to you.
Thank you very much.
And thank you all for tuning in. You got 5 styluses. You might as well use them. And we'll see you next time. See you later, everybody.